The game of rugby union requires players to complete repetitive bouts of high-speed running, collisions, accelerations, and decelerations. Previously, the match demands of rugby union have been quantified using global positioning system units. Depending on the individual player's position, studies have shown rugby union players are required to cover between 4,000 and 7,500 metres in an 80-minute game. Obviously, forwards are required to run more than the backs are. This is due to the lower running efficiency caused by certain physical attributes required to play in the forward pack compared to the back line, and a different requirement throughout the game, such as set piece, scrums, lineouts, rucks, tackles, etc. Previous studies have suggested the outcome of the game can be directly influenced by the player's abilities to complete repeated high-intensity bouts. A past study used a rolling average approach to quantify the peaks in running intensity during international rugby union test matches. This approach has been successfully used in other sports such as rugby league, Australian football, and rugby sevens and soccer, and in rugby union at an international level, but it has not been completed for Super Rugby or National Rugby Championship competition in Australia. Super Rugby competition is a domestic competition that includes 15 teams originating from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Japan, and Argentina. The National Rugby Championships, or the NRC, is an Australian domestic competition that includes 8 teams from Australia and 1 team from Fiji. And then the Queensland Premier Rugby competition is a statewide competition based in Queensland that is contested by 8 teams. The purpose of the current study is to identify the duration and positional specific running intensities required by Australian domestic rugby union players during Super Rugby, NRC and QPR competitions. This information will allow coaches and practitioners to accurately prescribe training drills that will be completed at the same intensity of a game for that period of time. Secondary purpose is to compare the peak running intensities of the 3 competitions being looked at in Super Rugby, NRC and QPR. It is hypothesized that front row and second row players will display a lower average amount of accelerations, lower average metabolic power output, and average velocity when compared to back row, inside back and outside back players. Inside backs are expected to display higher relative distance and average velocity over the different periods of time compared to all the other positions. And the front row and second row players are expected to display the lowest total distance, relative distance, and velocity. Metabolic power is expected to be higher in the inside and outside backs compared to the front row and second row players. This is expected. There is expected to be no significant difference across any moving average durations between back row players and outside back players for any of the variables tested. All variables are expected to be higher for the NRC fixtures compared to Super Rugby and QPR fixtures due to the more open style of play that is encouraged in the NRC games and the higher score lines that are seen in the NRC games compared to Super Rugby and Queensland Club Rugby. An observational project design was used to establish the duration and positional specific rugby union activity profiles. GPS data was collected from 41 Super Rugby players, 82 NRC players and 28 Queensland Club Rugby players. And out of those players, a total of 569 match files were collected over the course of the 2017 rugby seasons. Players were grouped into their individual positions: front row, second row, back row, inside back and outside backs. Before the commencement of the study, informed consent was gained by all organisations and players involved in the study. During all matches played throughout the 2017 season, players wore individual GPS units that recorded the players' movement patterns. The GPS units were fitted into a custom pouch on the inside of the playing uniform, located between the player's scapula. Each player used the same GPS unit for the entirety of the study period to maintain reliability and validity of the study. This data was downloaded using Team AMS software. The data was further analysed to get the rolling average over 10 different time durations, 1 minute intervals all the way up to 10-minute intervals, increasing in 1 minute, of each variable using custom RStudio software. Speed data was converted to distance covered per minute of gameplay, measured in meters per minute. Rate of change of speed was used to calculate the amount of accelerations and decelerations. Previous research has established how to calculate metabolic power, watts per kilogram, and is used to account for accelerations, decelerations, and speed-based movements performed by the individual players. As for the timeline for this project, ethical clearance and subject recruitment, along with collection of data and the analysis of the data, has already been completed due to all of the data from the 2017 season being used as opposed to this season. The completion of the write-up and project submission is expected to be completed by the end of June in 2018.